Have you ever wondered why some people, even when standing on the brink of despair, can transform their pain into a guiding light for millions? This is not magic nor random luck. It is the story of a person who, in the deepest darkness of life, found an unimaginable strength within. Lesbrown. Lesbrown was not born into luxury. On the contrary, he grew up in poverty and was even labeled as educationally challenged. Such a stigma once clouded his path, an invisible chain that confined his confidence and dreams. But you know what? Those chains do not define the true person he is. No one can decide your worth except yourself. Les's journey was not a straight, shining path. It was a rugged journey, full of harsh twists of fate. People often say that light cannot shine without darkness. And it is that darkness, pain, rejection, and failure that became the material forging an extraordinary human being. If you have ever felt lost, abandoned by society, or doubted yourself, Les's story will be the sincerest message. Because he has been there. He once sank so deep into darkness, full of doubt and despair, that he wanted to give up on himself. But what pulled him back? What made him rise, step through layers of darkness without fear? It was the awakening of the shadow within his soul. A difficult and courageous work that Carl Jung called shadow work, the task of facing, embracing, and transforming the hidden parts inside, where fears, shame, and pain reside. When Les faced that shadow, he did not avoid or deny it, but understood and transformed it into living motivation. Through that process, the ego and the masks built by society and himself were gradually peeled away. The ego projection, when we see in others the weaknesses of ourselves, gave way to acceptance and self-love. This is the first step in individuation, the path back to the most authentic self. The Stoic philosophies of Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, and Epictetus echoed in every step Les took. He learned to control his emotions, accept what cannot be changed, and focus his strength on the one thing he could control, his attitude and actions. In that silence and calm, he found the power of inner freedom, free from others' approval. Unbound by past failures, Lesbrown is not just a story of success, but a heroic anthem of rising above seemingly insurmountable limits. He carries a powerful spiritual energy, the energy of belief in oneself, the desire to live fully, and to inspire fellow struggling souls. Can you imagine, amidst endless darkness, a person determined to kindle the fire in his heart? That is a miracle not everyone dares to experience. And when that flame burns, it not only illuminates him, but spreads to millions seeking light in their lives. If you are lost, remember that calmness is not weakness, but the strength to stand tall in the storm. Know that sometimes you must fall into darkness to realize how truly strong you are. That is the individuation journey, becoming yourself, firm and shining brightly. That fire is not created from perfection, but from broken shards of the past, gathered and mended by patience and self-love. When you accept this, you will no longer be shackled by judgment or fear of failure. You will rise like Lesbrown, inspiring the world through your own story. Let his story be a powerful reminder that even if you once wanted to give up on yourself, even if you have doubted yourself to the core, there's still a power inside waiting for you to awaken. The power to live, to love, to fight, and to shine. Today, perhaps more than ever, the world needs people like Lesbrown, those who know how to look deeply into the darkness, not with fear, but to unlock the hidden strength within. His story is not only a personal journey, but a lesson for anyone who has ever felt small against the turbulent flow of life. People often think success comes from luck or innate talent. But the deeper truth lies in the moments when the spotlight is off. When you are alone facing yourself, That is when your soul is truly tested. Lesbrown has lived through those moments where loneliness and doubt almost swallowed him, but he chose not to run. He chose to face it. What makes the difference is not what happened to Les, but how he responded. In psychology, this is called individuation, the process of becoming oneself through confronting and integrating the shadow within. When we embrace our imperfections and unhealed wounds, we begin to free ourselves from the chains of the past. Les taught us an important lesson about not letting the ego control our actions. When we cling too tightly to the self, we react with defense or give up in the face of failure. But by working with his shadow, Les understood true power lies in inner calm, non-judgmental self-awareness, and relentless perseverance. You may feel tired, lost, or simply unsure where to start again. But believe that, like Lesbrown, it is precisely in those moments that you are being called to awaken. Not perfection, but steadfastness, the courage to move forward despite the risk of falling. Above all, he reminds us of the power of belief. Not blind faith in success, but steadfast belief in one's own worth, even when challenges shake the mind. That is the guiding light through the darkest nights. You may not know, Lesbrown faced many rejections early in his speaking career. But he did not let that extinguish the fire within. Each rejection taught him to rise stronger, more resilient. In Stoic philosophy, this is called amor fati, love of fate, accepting everything as essential for growth. Do you see yourself in this story? A shadow, a hope, an unbreakable strength. When you dare to face yourself, you are no longer defined by the past or fear. You become the architect of your own life. Lesbrown's inspiring words are not merely a personal tale. They are a beacon for anyone seeking profound meaning in life. A reminder that you have the right to live a full, energetic life, and most importantly, to be yourself. And then, when you pass through challenges, when you look back on the path you've walked, you will realize that power does not come from others' approval, but from the freedom within your soul. No one can avoid the storms of life that sweep away all familiarity and leave the soul bewildered. But even in those seemingly hopeless moments, a faint light silently burns within. Life, desire, and trust in oneself. Lesbrown stood in that storm, not with physical strength, but with an unyielding will. His journey stands as the clearest testament to Marcus Aurelius's philosophy. It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. When the world turned its back, when every door seemed to slam shut, Les chose not to suffer in silence or give up. He stepped into himself, faced the deepest shadows, and transformed pain into strength. There is a miraculous power in accepting and loving the weak, wounded parts inside us. Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens." And that acceptance opened the path for Les to embark on individuation, a complex and painful, but beautiful process where his true self was born from the ashes of past wounds. From a psychological view, Les undertook profound shadow work. He did not avoid the darkness but embraced it, turning it into energy for rebirth. That is the strength of not losing oneself amid life's merciless trials. You may not know, Lesbrown once felt so hopeless that he thought he had no worth. But what set him apart was the choice not to surrender, not to be swallowed by prejudice, rejection, or failures. That resilience was forged day by day, trial by trial, fueled by faith and inner strength. His inspiring story is not just a tale but a call to awakening. When you hear his words, you feel not only outward strength, but spiritual energy, a deep connection to yourself and the vast universe. That belief and inner calm made him a living icon, an endless source of inspiration for millions. You may be on a difficult journey, feeling lost and weary. But remember, every small step, every time you stand after a fall, is proof of an unbreakable strength within. Lesbrown once wanted to give up on himself, but he chose to continue. And that made the legend. By reflecting on the past, not to regret, but to learn and grow, Les proved life is not a race to the finish, but a journey of self-discovery and acceptance. And in that journey, you are not alone. An eternal energy is always ready to lift you, if only you dare to believe and walk on. So are you ready to awaken that power? To build a new self from wounds, failures, and doubts, strong, calm, and inspired? Let Lesbrown's story light your path, reminding you have the right to live a full, meaningful, and energetic life. When everything outside seems to collapse, and the world's noise tries to drown your inner voice, that is the moment you are invited to return to yourself, not to escape, but to stand tall and shine. True freedom does not come from others' approval, but from inner peace and unconditional self-acceptance. Lesbrown showed us that the man who once wanted to give up on himself became a flame inspiring millions. He is not only a symbol of strength rising above adversity, but a living proof of individuation, returning to the true self, unshackled by the darkness of past wounds. You can do the same. You can turn pain and failure into abundant spiritual strength. Every time you look in the mirror and say, "I deserve to live a full life," you take another step on the path of inner rebirth. And remember, the woman who knows her worth does not chase, she chooses.